action. Welcome, everyone, to Manager in the Mirror, episode 3 of the League Name TBD No Fun podcast. We're here with Thomas Griffin, who, at his own request, wanted to squeeze in, and we'll get into why he's exactly so fired up, I'm sure, at some point. But for now, Tom, how are you?
I'm fantastic. What a week this is. We've got March Madness tomorrow. We've got the Severance finale tomorrow. NFL draft coming up. Life is fantastic.
Things are humming along, aren't they? Dan, how are we?
Humming along is right. Week three of Manager in the Mirror edition two coming along. I'm excited. Happy to be here.
Hell yeah. It means we're about a third of the way from the start of the series to the our own rookie draft. So time to start firing up those engines, people around the league. So we're here today to talk about Thomas Griffin, really get to know the man in the mirror. Um, we'll just recap his season real quick. He started 2024 coming off an 8-7 season, which actually netted the 7 seed, which is crazy. But he was ninth in points for, so I don't know that he really deserved to be in that playoff conversation. Uh, the quarterback redraft came around, and he drafted Joe Burrow, trading up into the 8 pick, Jordan Love at the 201, and Aiden O'Connell at the 310. And then on 5/8, May 8th, 2 days before the rookie draft, he sent Jordan Love and the 303 this year for Jared Goff and the 106 last year, which he turned into Roma Dunze. That was with yours truly. Still feeling okay about it, but a good trade on your end, 100%. And then the day of the rookie draft, he received Alexander Madison and the picks that became uh, Javon Baker and Jordan Travis, as well as
I
his
sent
own.
those away, I think.
Yeah, you got that backwards.
Oh, okay.
I
Uh,
got Jermaine Burton.
what did you get
Javon Baker, Alexander Madison, Jordan Travis, and Tom's 26th third.
for the pick that became Trey Burton? That's right. That was with Dan.
Jermaine
And
Burton.
then he drafted Jaden Daniels at the 4, arguably the steal of the draft. Roma Dunze at the 6, Worthy at the 9, Keon at the 13, Burton, like we just mentioned, with the 24, and then Rashid Ali and Louis Rees Zamet before all was said and done. And then he, early in the season on the pod, as we discussed in Rob's episode, sent Sam Laporta for Lad McConkey, Luke Musgrave, and Rob's first next year. October 24th, he was definitely well on his way towards a rebuild and sent Jared Goff, Roma Dunze, this year's 8 pick and 13 pick, for Garrett Wilson, this year's 101, and Cade Otton. He then, just about 2 weeks later, flipped Otton and his sixths this year and in 2027 for the 20 pick this year, 23 pick this, or yeah, 23 pick this year, 28 pick this year, and my 27 third. And then he rounded out his season sending Jameis and the 308 for Cade Stover and this year's 19. He ended up finishing 6th and 9, 8 seed yet again, 8th in points for, and has the 1, 3, 5, 19, and 20 this year. What a year, Tom. What a year.
Yeah. No, it was definitely a rebuild transition year. You're listing off those moves and it's hard to find a miss. I think the Jermaine Burton deal was certainly a miss, but a small one at that. But turning Jameis into his second, turning Cade Otton into his second, the McConkey trade, the Burrow get. I think the worst part of my season was probably my draft where I still left with Jaden Daniels, but I did probably miss out on some value with Worthy, Keon Coleman. I think there were some probably better guys on the board there, but you know what? If my the worst part of my offseason is a draft where I leave with Jaden Daniels and Xavier Worthy, I think I'm pretty happy.
Very fair.
I mean, yeah, pretty quickly took it from a team that was kind of in a bleak spot, pretty in the dumps to it felt like overnight, with a handful of those trades, you were well established as one of the best up and comers we've got.
That reminds me, I have been doing the vinyl for every team, and the album behind me is Twin Fantasy, which reminds me of Tom
We love it. We love the
because
pick.
it is on my first listen of it, immediately in my top 10. I don't think any album's ever done that. And I think it's easy to say that Tom's real underrated as a manager. He's one of the three of the original eight not to get a ring yet. But this is twice now we've been looking at a Tom team and thinking, what is this man cooking? Things are looking great. You guys probably thought I was going to say something else. I don't know what you possibly thought I was going to get into with Twin Fantasy, but nonetheless,
I've
let's.
had a twin fantasy or two with Tom in them.
Okay, cut.
Dan, start us off.
All right. Well, you got into it a little bit. It is a exciting time of the year for sports. You said you're doing good, but tell us about Tom the man.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I did touch on it a little bit. A lot of great things going on. I was just back in New Jersey with my girlfriend celebrating St. Patrick's Day. First time she met the extended family, which was interesting for sure. Definitely had a good time. Um, I've been so consumed with Severance content, Dynasty fantasy football content, and March Madness content. Like that's been my life these past few weeks. Obviously got the Severance finale tomorrow. March Madness coming up. Yeah, things are great. Just switched teams at work, so work's been a bit of a nightmare recently. Um, Nightmare in a good way, just super super busy, but yeah, life is great. Excited to be here for sure.
Awesome.
Oh yeah.
Is Olivia's 40 time any better than this time last year?
Honestly, it's probably a little bit slower.
Okay. All right.
I wouldn't be surprised if all of ours are.
I still think I'm running a 4.8.
All right. Well, we talked about your haul of draft capital that you have this year. I believe 1, 3, and 5 was what we said. Um, Second year in a row, you've been pretty loaded with first round capital and with draft picks. Do you currently think you're going to stay put and take the guys on the board, or think you'll be moving those picks?
Good question. I'll say this. Definitely staying put with the 101. I think that's pretty much locked and sealed. As
Okay.
for the other picks, nothing is locked in right now. I think we got to see where the draft falls. I have a couple players in mind that I really like, but I am definitely having these picks up for sale. Like not that I'm looking to sell them, but I'm definitely open to it if the right offer comes along. I've been talking to Jesse about a package for some players. I'm talking to Zach and Brennan. Radio silence on their ends, but I've been talking, so we'll see what happens there. I'm open to moving pretty much all my picks except for the 101.
I actually got a response out of Brennan. I don't think a lot's going right now. He seemed non-committal for the time being. Haven't personally knocked on the fee door, but I'm sure when the time comes, he'll be ready to make a splash. So last year we talked about your draft. It seemed like you focused a lot of value on quarterback and receiver, which is a very common rebuild move. Was this on purpose? And can we expect the same this year? Or are you going to be looking more best player available guys that are, instant contributors? Is there any kind of direction?
Yeah, definitely on purpose. I would say not to give away my full dynasty playbook, but as you guys might have realized, I think there it was kind of like a twofold strategy. It was like on one end, RBs we know have the shortest shelf life. Um, Maybe not invest in those guys. Let's put my assets elsewhere. But on the flip side, if I don't start RBs that are playing, I'm also going to have a pretty terrible record and be able to get a top pick. So um, that was totally on purpose. I wanted to invest in mainly wide receivers, young wide receivers, and young quarterbacks, just because I believe there's a lot more there's just a lot more time there. And I think my strategy will be to target running backs when I feel like my contending window opens. Is that this year? Could be. It definitely could be. Um, you guys probably know who I'm taking with the 101, so it's no secret. So
Okay.
that'll be most likely in addition to the running back room. So I'll call that an investment. But yeah, I think this this season compared to last year, I'll definitely have players who are starting at the running back position rather than Samaje Perine.
Okay. I was wondering if he was a cornerstone of the upcoming contention.
You know when Rob Schefter leaked that 3 year deal, like 3 year $21 million deal for Perine, I was pretty excited. Wow, do I might have something here.
But no.
Well, yeah, so it was a rough year for you on the field last year with the Samaje P. Ryans of the world holding down the running back room. And yet the last 2 weeks of the season, you scored more than any of the playoff teams did. And week 16, the week before that, you put up 140, which was within 12 of three of the playoff teams. Was this kind of a wake-up call, like a signal to you that maybe things were turning around faster than you thought, or was this something you were already kind of keen to, and this was just the expected late season come on?
Definitely not expected. No way. I did not. I mean, I liked my quarterback room with Burrow and Daniels. I did not expect Daniels to have the year that he had. I did not expect um, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who came kind of had a not so great rookie year, had an awesome year last year. Devontae Smith was solid. Jordan Addison was huge. McConkey was huge. Um, Definitely felt like all the pieces kind of came into the right spot. Um,
Someone peeking in the blur.
that might be one of the other manager in the mirrors. Um, yeah, it was not something I expected. But it was a bit of a wake up call. It was like I don't want to waste another year of what was close to an MVP season by Joe Burrow. So now it's time for me to get things into shape. I've got a lot of draft capital to make some moves. Yeah, it was a pretty special end to the season. I'm hoping to carry that momentum over.
Good stuff. Now, last week, the blurry figure behind you joined us, and he preached the importance of depth in a quarterback room. And he seemed to imply that he would put his quarterback room possibly over any in the league because he has such depth. Now you obviously have some pretty good quarterbacks starting, the two you just mentioned, but with Gino now jumping in front of AOC in Vegas, you seemingly don't have a quarterback three that will be sniffing a starting job anytime soon. Will there be a push as you start to gear up towards being a playoff team? That do you have a plan for that? Is it going to be addressed in the draft, maybe an off-season trade, or is this just going to happen as it happens?
Yeah. First of all, let me start this off. Jesse claiming he had one of the best, or maybe even said the best quarterback room, flat out preposterous. I like you look at those names. It's like Trevor Lawrence. I like Trevor Lawrence. He's been a disappointment. Justin Fields wasn't a starter last year. Kenny Pickett wasn't a starter last year. Malik Willis wasn't a starter last year. JJ McCarthy wasn't a starter last year. Um, there is a world where four of those guys are now starters for this year. But this is a dynasty league. I don't feel super great about any of those guys outside of McCarthy. I think Justin Fields I like in the short term, but it's all the thing with him has always been, can he keep a starting job? I don't know if he can. Um, and then the thing with McCarthy is they might bring in Aaron Rodgers. So if they bring in Rodgers, then he goes to the bench. Um, on the flip side, I will say that I do think my quarterback room definitely needs an addition. I haven't made a decision yet on where that might be. There's a certain player I'm hoping falls to the three pick, or potentially another player I could be looking at the five pick, that I'm a little less excited about. But that to me solves the problem. If
Okay.
that's not the case, I'll be looking at some older guys, maybe like a Matt Stafford, um, Russell Wilson, if he gets a starting job. For in a 10 team league, I feel like it's not that hard. That's why I think Jesse's kind of overrating the depth. He could take all of his quarterbacks, slap a first round pick onto it, and I'm probably not accepting that for either of my top two quarterbacks.
That's an interesting way of thinking about it. Wow. Huh.
Well,
I
let me pose that question to you. Would you take Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, JJ McCarthy, Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis for Jaden Daniels?
Well, no, I think you are right. And obviously you got to think about more than just one quarterback spot when you're building a team. I definitely wouldn't have him above you despite his great, gap in depth just because of the importance of starter caliber. Though we did discuss that last week. I'm a big fan of Lawrence. I think he could be a fringe top 12 guy this year, maybe even up as high as like a eight, QB8 on the year. Justin Fields, if he holds a starting job, can be a top five guy if he really is like putting stuff together. Um, and that right there is enough to be a league average or better starting room. But you were right in identifying that a lot of these guys haven't done this very recently on Jesse's side of things.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, obviously, I'm a fan of Mir's QB room, but like at the end of the day, in a league where you start two QBs, I'm obviously going to pick the team that has two high-end QB1s and then just figure out the rest versus leaning on guys who are just not difference makers and having a handful of them. I'd rather have the difference makers. I'd rather have your QB room than anyone's. I think that's obvious.
Well, that leads us into our question, Tom. It's a little on the spot here, but how many do you think are above you?
So I'll answer that question and then I'll answer how many are above Jesse. So beginning with how many are above me, I'm gonna say one. I'm gonna say one.
Who is it?
And I think it's a close one. But I'm obviously rocking with my guy, Jalen Hurts.
I
And
think
when you
I know
pair
the answer.
Jalen Hurts with Bo Nix, I think that's a pretty elite duo. And then you've also got Russell Wilson, who I believe will have a starting job, and Geno Smith, who will have a starting job. I think Luke's got a great QB room. I will say that's the only one I'll put above mine right now. And that's honestly for a lack of depth. If I make a first round pick as a quarterback, if I make a move for a third starter, I think I'm gonna go with mine. I just think right now, with me not having a third starter, if this was the quarterback room I entered the season with, I would take Luke's. As for who I would put over Jesse. I know that wasn't the question, but it must be answered. So myself, Luke, Dan, Ryan, Nico, um,
Brennan's got Mahomes, Purdy,
Brennan for
Carr,
sure.
Darnold,
Definitely Brennan. Um, uh, Rob for sure.
May, Baker,
No,
Tyler, Raj. Yeah.
yeah, no doubt. Um,
Running out of teams here,
it
Tom.
would have been easier to just say who I would take Jesse over, which is Pat and
Zach.
maybe Zach. I'll take Jesse over Zach, um, because I think although I'm a big fan of Justin Herbert, especially in fantasy, and I think he's the clear quarterback one. I think Jesse's like multitude of guys. Like I think that's slightly better than what Zach has because Zach doesn't really have the depth, and Bryce Young, although flashed, is still a bit of a question mark.
For sure. Fair enough.
All right, so we got into the meat of your QB room there. We talked about your other strength aside from capital is your wide receivers. Currently, you have JSN and Devontae Smith, who have both peaked as wide receiver 9. Garrett Wilson, who's coming off a wide receiver 10 season. And then we can throw in Lad McConkey, who rookie year didn't have a super high relative finish, but obviously very exciting there. With no one else on your team that's ever had a wide receiver 1 season, do you feel any kind of urgency to, in your build, push for a top end, one of these truly high end wide receivers? Or do you feel comfortable going in with this platoon of maybe low end wide receiver ones to high mid range wide receiver twos?
That's a great question. I like what I've got. I've got five guys that I think are pretty awesome, young and actually, so I would say six guys. And I think you listed, did you say Worthy in there as well? So the five that you mentioned, plus Xavier Worthy, and then I'll say obviously he didn't have a great year, but Keon Coleman is just like another could be a guy.
We have hope.
Yeah, we hope. We hope. After that, it's not looking super pretty. I think there's definitely something to be said for having like those like hammers like you have, Dan. Like you've got three guys that are just absolute monsters. Um that can just win you a week by default, just like two of them. Um, so there's definitely been some interest in adding a guy. I'll say it. I was looking at a move for AJ Brown. I was looking at a move for Drake London. Um,
There were some
Drake London is a bit out
BTJ
of my.
last week, maybe.
What'd you say?
I think your name might have been thrown out talking about BTJ whispers.
BTJ is another one. Yeah. Yeah, that's those are the three I think. So I've been looking for like a guy. I've sent out a few offers. Drake London's a little bit out of my price range, I think. But the other two I'm still kind of waiting to hear back. Not like that I need a guy, but I'm definitely interested in it. I will say like BTJ, I wouldn't put him in that like top category just yet. He was awesome his rookie year, but this might surprise you. He only averaged 1 point per game more, or maybe it's like 1.5 points per game more than Devontae Smith. Kind of crazy.
Really
Yeah.
interesting. I
There's-
mean, yeah. And cooking up that question, I did a little digging, and the Smitty wide receiver 9 season in 2022, the Wilson wide receiver 10 season last year, and JSN number 9 last year, or sorry, Wilson's was 23, JSN 24. All three of those seasons finished in the 250s. And then when we're talking about like what I was thinking of top end talent, I looked at just for example at my own Amon-Ra St. Brown, and his last two wide receiver 3 seasons have been around like 330.
yeah.
It definitely like is a difference from the top of the wide receiver ones to the bottom, but when you have many knocking on that door, uh, it definitely can cover the difference.
Yeah, I still think of this group, maybe Garrett Wilson is the only one. I don't know, like Lad I love, but I just don't see him as being like a top five, top three guy. I will say this season, with the current situation that's in place for Jackson Smith and Jigba, he could go nuclear. He could be like a top five guy, a top three guy, top four guy. We'll see. But the pieces seem to have fallen into place.
I'm certainly less scared of the Cooper Cup edition than a lot of people seem to be as far as he's concerned.
Yeah, I mean, you replace DK and Tyler Lockett with a 40-year-old Cooper Cup. I'm not too worried about it.
All right. Well, speaking of things you're worried of, Rob indicated in our inaugural Manager in the Mirror for 2025 that he considers you his biggest rival, and he had some ill wishes definitely for you and your squad. We're just wondering if the feeling's mutual and if there's anyone else on top or instead of Rob that you have similar feelings towards.
That's a great question. I was waiting for this one. I got a little something to get off my chest.
I'm gonna sit
Let's
back.
uh let's go to the receipts. Um I want to pull out some receipts. I brought them today. I want to um put Rob's mind at ease. Okay, I guess I'm not allowed to share my screen. So that's okay.
Man.
I will just show my phone screen. Because Dan is not allowing me to
I
share
don't know.
screen. Let's see if we can read this.
You can share your screen now.
Okay, now I can share my screen. Okay. Nifly voting to
Wait, are those the names of the committee at the top? This is news to me. Oh my God.
at the top. This is the committee. Here, WM, worst manager.
Well, do you want to go through best manager first?
Nope, we can skip that one.
Okay.
Patrick Mormile, Patrick Mormile, and Dan Marks, Rob Couchabato.
Wow.
Wow. I mean, after the praise Rob was giving to Dan, I was losing my mind. I couldn't believe it. This guy has been hoodwinked by Dan the man Marks. I mean, it was unbelievable. And
Hoodwink. I cast a vote on a poll. God forbid. I defended his placement as an honorable mention. I do think Pat probably deserved to win it.
Before you just said that, I was gonna say you've just secured Dan as the lucky manager who gets to send 2/3 and jump 10 spots in the draft this year, swapping with Pat. You were gonna be his new best friend and you
I
sold
no more strays at
I
my
don't
door.
have any picks to move up with
it.
unless
Um,
it's fourth.
it was something I need to get off my chest. Rob is like coming at me. I mean, this is a guy that I have bonded with for years through pro clubs, through basketball in Jesse's backyard, through Severance, through fantasy football, and for him to throw all that away, because of something I didn't do, it was to be quite frank, it was hard.
Wow. To be honest, at the time, I remember thinking, wow, Tom is just getting the flack for this one. And then I thought, I hope those votes never come out. And I thought they wouldn't.
No, pretty dirty stuff. So is it fair to say that Rob, do you consider him a rival now or an
Yeah,
enemy?
this leaves you guys in a weird place. I don't know what to think.
I don't consider him a rival. To be a rival, you have to be on the same tier as me. And Rob is not. Rob is not there. Um, I put myself in the combo with the big boys, and I see Dan as on my tier. I see Nico as on my tier, and I mean I gotta give respect where it's due to the former champ, even though I don't think it's gonna last.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
I'm gonna throw out the name Nico Ellis. I love the guy, great person. But for those that don't know, I commissioned two fantasy football leagues this past year, and Nico took my money in both. He was the champ of a dynasty league, a 14-team dynasty league, and he was the champ of a 12-team redraft league. I'm a little tired of it. I don't know what he's doing over on Bird Street, but it certainly ain't right. And with the quarterback draft debacle, some of the other shady shit he's always trying to pull, um,
Mhm.
he is my number one rival.
Kind of coming after my thing here, but okay, nice. I did publicly declare upon winning Best Manager that the rivalry was dead for a similar reason yours seems to not exist with Rob. So you can have him, man. Um, wow, that was a really emotional segment. Getting back into the ball.
Yeah. Wow. I was right. So as we've talked about, there's a lot to be excited about for you this year. And looking forward. Who on your team, current or maybe rookies to be taken, are you most excited to see take the field and maybe take a jump this year?
I already mentioned it, JSN definitely. I'm just super excited with JSN, Garrett Wilson, and potentially Jordan Addison at all having new quarterbacks. Out of those though, definitely most excited about JSN. I just think without DK, without Lockett, I know Cup's there, but he's pretty much cooked at this point. I'm super excited about JSN. Genty, um, who will be added to the roster, that's gonna be special. And then I'll throw in a one more. I don't know if I should. Yeah, I won't go with a rookie because I can't give away my plan. But Xavier Worthy, after his end to the season and his performance in the Chiefs' loss to the Eagles in the Super Bowl, I'm excited to see what Worthy can do with hopefully a bounce back year from Mahomes.
Xavier Worthy, the garbage man, owns garbage time. I wasn't expecting these Genty declarations. I want to throw another question on the table here. What are these? How do you feel about these Genty landing spots?
Yeah, really, really interesting. I think in some mindsets, like the higher he goes, like the more I'm just like, wow, that team, if they think he's that good, like he must be generational. Like they're gonna use him a shit ton. But also like if the Raiders take him at 6, I'll be like, eh, I don't know if I want the Raiders running back. I think my favorite running back landing spot might be the Broncos
I've
with
been
Sean
been
Payton.
on that.
I
Yeah,
don't think Genty makes it to 20. I think he's probably Raiders, Bears, Cowboys, one of those three. And regardless, like he will be the 101, but there's certainly a little bit more excitement if he ends up on the Cowboys, where I just think there's just a good offense around him.
good stuff. And then wrapping us up here, who do you think takes it all this year, and who is gonna be scrubbing the bottom of the barrel?
I think so. I watched Rob, and I think he picked Mormile to scrub the bottom of the barrel. And
As
I
did
was just
Jesse.
like, Jesse did too.
Yep.
That is shocking to me. As much as we've um been on more miles case, like his team is not that bad. I think this question's a layup, and it's Jesse Meir. That team is going nowhere. Nowhere. So yeah, that's a layup to me. That team is awful. He can parade around with his backup quarterbacks getting temporary landing spots, but that team stinks. Um, and then league champ, it's another easy one. Um, that's a very easy one. I will be taking my talents to the league championship, and I will be winning it for the first time.
I can't say I'm surprised. You're definitely starting to knock in that threshold. We'll see post-draft exactly how the, immediate firepower of the starters look, but there definitely could be a few running back additions that just about get you there. Well, that'll do us for today with about 3.5 minutes to spare. Anything you want to say to the league, Tom?
Um, Watch out, I'm coming.
Wow. 2 words.
That's the
I'm
same thing that
rooting
happened in my, or the same thing he said in my twin fantasy.
Um, Dan, anything from you?
No.
Did I see you have a Florida shirt on?
Yes. Dog shirt.
We're gonna have about uh what
Wrong one.
what do you know the final of March
In
Madness is on
round
what
two,
day?
baby. We'll see you in round two.
I believe we will see you in round two. I don't think Oklahoma's getting in the way, but I'm not too worried. Dan Hurley's a loser. Um, do you know what day the final is? Is it like April 9th or some shit?
No, no clue.
Okay,
But
well,
Ryan,
we'll just say it's about 3 weeks of Manager in the Mirrors, and eventually on one of them around that time, we'll be crowning the Florida Gators national champions.
you know what? I don't think we'll be doing that, but we will be able to celebrate that your team, your favorite sports team, has stopped two three-peats with the Philadelphia Eagles stopping the Chiefs from three-peating and the Florida Gators stopping the Huskies from the three-peat.
There's worse places to be in sports, right, Dan? All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Adios.
Bye.